163, and we have to read from in any cult or symbol. Now, we will begin with the definition of cult, because it is very interesting what Yasmin asked about the cult. And I have made a note on that also, and I have checked the dictionary also. And Srivastava's use of the word is absolutely correct. Because he's saying the cult of in the previous paragraph. Okay? So, cult of the master of existence on page 162. Okay, if you go to page 162, it's cult of the master of its existence. Cult is the worship, okay? The worship or the adoration. Okay, just 1 second. Cult. Yeah, I have it here. Cult means a system of religious veneration or devotion, okay, directed towards a particular figure or object, as example, the cult of Saint Olaf, or the cult of Christ, okay, or the cult of Shiva, whatever you want. So it's used in that particular sense, that you are limiting your devotion to one particular either object or person. In other words, it's a sort of limited thing. Okay. So, but in Srivastava's phrase, it is limited to the infinite. It's cult of the master of existence. And the master of existence is not either Christ or Olaf or Shiva or anything, it is infinite. He is the supreme, he is the Ishvara, the Purushottama. So that is the meaning of cult. So now he has told us earlier that worship consists of 3 elements. There is the inner devotion, which is a real thing, okay, which others don't see. Then there is also the outer symbol. The outer symbol is either the photograph or a image or the Om or whatever you want, okay? Or it could be a statue in wood or in metal or in clay. It could be anything. That's the outer symbol.
Rangada's voice is breaking.
My voice is breaking. Okay, I don't know.
No, Rangada. No, Rangada. Tarika, some problem with your net.
Individual problem. Tarika.
Yes. Is okay too.
If you tighten the connections, maybe. Okay. Shilpa, good morning.
Good morning, Rangada.
Shilpa, I've still not been able to answer your question because the context is necessary. If I don't know, it's a very vague thing. Whom is she talking about? And so it's a little vague. So I'll not be able to answer unless I know the context. And the context is not given there. So that's a difficult question to answer. Yeah, okay. So we come back to our synthesis. So, Tarika, is it better now? She's probably still trying. Anyway, so let's get back to our the love offered to the divine, the devotion, has 3 elements, Srivastava says. One element is the inner devotion, which others don't see. Your spirit in which it is done. Okay, that's the real thing. The subjective inner adoration, love, or devotion, or whatever you want. The second is the outer symbol. The outer symbol is the photograph or an image or a stone in wood or metal, as I said, or in clay, whatever it is the outer. And the other is your action. You can do namaskar, you can bow down and do shashtang pranam, okay? Or you can take, as we do in India, you take a light and you do arati. So these are all the outward signs, okay? So, so there are so many. There are 3 things. So now Srivastava is going to discuss one by one each one. Okay, so so I now go to page 163. And
what is the third element?
No, only 3. Only 3 elements.
Devotion, outer symbol, and what's the third one?
The third one is the the act, what you are doing with your body. Either you are taking a dhoop and circling it around the image, or as we do in Samadhi, you will see that many people, they look up to mother's room, okay, and then circle that the dhoop around the incense stick, like that round. So that's the outer action. So outer action of the body, it could be that, or it could be the waving of lights, the arati, or it could be a Shashtang Pranam, or it could be just a bending down and touching the feet or whatever. Okay, in your imagination, you are touching mother's feet. So bowing down, okay, or do pranam. These are the outward bodily actions. These three things are the elements of the complete devotion. So, only three, not four. Now I am reading each sentence, okay? Oh no, we have to read the whole thing now, we have to read it. So, one of you has to read. I'm sorry, one of you has to read. So, who will read? Usually it is Tuesday is Pallavi's day. So, if Pallavi has got the text, she can read.
Yes, Rangada.
Okay, go ahead. In any cult or symbol, the symbol.
In any cult, the symbol, the significant rite or expressive figure is not only a moving and enriching aesthetic element, but a physical means by which the human being begins to make outwardly definite the emotion and aspiration of his art, to confirm it and to dynamize it. For if without a spiritual aspiration, worship is meaningless and vain, yet the aspiration also without the act and the form is a disembodied and for life an incompletely effective power. It is unhappily the fare of all forms in human life to become crystallized, purely formal and therefore effete. And although form and cult preserve always their power for the man who can still enter into their meaning, the majority become to use the ceremony as a mechanical rite and the symbol as a lifeless sign. And because that kills the soul of religion, cult and form have in the end to be changed or thrown aside altogether. There are those even to whom all cult and form are for this reason suspect and offensive. But few can dispense with the support of outward symbols, and even a certain divine element in human nature reminds them always for the completeness of its spiritual satisfaction. Always the symbol is legitimate insofar as it is true, sincere, beautiful, and delightful. And even one may say that a spiritual consciousness without any aesthetic or emotional content is not entirely, or at any rate, not integrally spiritual. In the spiritual life, the basis of the act is a spiritual consciousness, perennial and renovating, moved to express itself always in new forms, or able to renew the truth of a form always by the flow of the spirit, and to so express itself and make every action a living symbol of some truth of the soul is the very nature of its creative vision and impulse. It is so that the spiritual seeker must deal with life and transmute its form and glorify it in its essence.
So it's a very interesting paragraph what he's discussing, because sometimes we feel that we can dispose of the outer act. I don't need to go to the ashram. I can sit in my home and think of mother. Now, Srimad is warning us that that is okay, but it will not be effective in life. Okay, very interesting what he's saying. We will go into detail and see what he's saying. So let us start from the beginning. So the three elements of devotion and love are, as I said only, I am just repeating, okay. The inner element, the inner devotion, the subjective feeling, the subjective psychological feeling inside is the most important. There's no doubt about it. Then there is the outer symbol. When Sri Aurobindo speaks of the symbol, he is meaning either a photograph of mother or any god or Christ or whatever, and it can also be a, as I said, an image, or it can be a sculpture or a photograph. It can be an image in clay or wood or metal, anything. Okay. So that is the outer symbol. And there is the third act, your act, what you are doing. Pranam or Sashtang Pranam or waving of the dhoop or the arati, what we do, the priests do that. Now always they do that. We take the lamp in their hand and go on. So, or you offer a flower, that also is there, or a fruit to the divine. Okay. Or you bow down at the samadhi. These are all the outer physical acts. So these three things constitute the entire act of worship. That's what Sri Aurobindo is saying. Now, each one has got its importance. And there are many who say, no, we can dispose of with the symbol. We need not worship a photograph. What is a photograph? It's just a piece of paper. But that's not true, Sri Aurobindo is saying, because they can also, that is the gate through which you, a photograph of mother, if you concentrate on it, it is a gate which opens on to the real mother. Okay, just like a symbol. I have got mother's symbol on my finger. So it's only a piece of metal. I can think of it in that way, but I can also think of it that that is the doorway to mother. So that is what Sri Aurobindo is saying. It has got an importance. The symbol is not unimportant. Okay, there are many who say that God doesn't have a form. So why should we pay any attention to the outer form? In fact, there are many who say that. Huh? In fact, yesterday's in the Life Divine class, we discussed that. The divine with form and divine without form. There are many philosophies which say, God is without form. You don't need to worship any form. But that's not true. Because that's only, it is true in a limited way. God is formless, no doubt. But God also can be seen in form. And the form is whatever you want to see him in. He is formless and he can give you a darshan in any form that you want. You want to see him as Shiva, you will see him as Shiva. You want to see him as Christ, you will see him as Christ. Or Buddha or Buddha, you will see. Okay? So this is what Sri Aurobindo is saying. Now we'll read each sentence. In any cult, the symbol, okay, very clear, the symbol, the photograph or the image or the sculpture, whatever, okay, statue, the significant rite or expression or expressive figure, expressive, it expresses your devotion towards the person you are addressing your devotion to. Okay, expressive figure is not only a moving and enriching aesthetic element, but a physical means by which the human being begins to make outwardly definite the emotion and aspiration of his heart, to confirm it and to dynamize it. That is the reason why people go to church and people go to temples and go to specific places where they feel that their devotion will be more fruitful. Now, that's why people go to the temple. You can go to the, you can do it at home, but why do people go? Because there's an inner feeling, a vague feeling that his presence is more in a temple or in a church or whatever, or the fire temple of the Parsis. By the way, the Parsis don't allow you to go into the temple, right? Yasmin, is that right?
Yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
Not only anybody outside, but if a girl gets married outside the Parsi community, even she is excommunicated and she cannot go into the fire temple.
Yeah.
Very stupid, rigid, orthodox laws.
In India also, some of the temples, they don't allow non-Hindus to go. Okay, I know that because there was a Frenchman from Auroville who had gone to Tiruvannamalai, to Trivandrum, but Tiruvananthapuram. Trivandrum is the English name. Tiruvananthapuram in Kerala, and there is a famous Padmanabha temple there. And when he tried to go in, They said, no, you are a foreigner, you are not a Hindu, you can't go in. He said, no, I am a Hindu by convert. They said, how do you prove that? So he went to the center and got a letter from the center in what is it? Tiruvannamalai, no, it's not Tiruvannamalai, Tiruvananthapuram, okay. And he got that certificate and then showed it to them and then they allowed him to go in. So there is a reason for that.
Amal had a nice anecdote. He went to a temple and he had his shirt tucked in and they said, "You're not a Hindu." So he took his shirt out and then he became a Hindu and then he went. And once I went to Jagannath Puri temple and they thought I was a foreigner and then he immediately asked me, "Aapka naam kya hai?" And then I couldn't reply because I was suddenly accosted. And then he's saying, "Dekho, Hindi nahi aata." And then I told him in Oriya. I said, "Oriya re kohi bhi?" And then he was taken aback. Then I told him, "I am a Hindu." And then he said, "Okay, sorry." Then I said, "Now that I have proven I am a Hindu, you prove to me that you are qualified to be a priest. So I will ask you one Upanishadic meaning, simple one." So I asked him, "Please explain to me Ishavasyam idam sarvam. What is the meaning of it?" And he couldn't answer. And then he said, sorry, and he let me in.
Yeah. There is a truth to that because the idea is that people who don't believe in Hinduism, they will pollute the atmosphere there. It is a sort of very minor truth, but there is also the other truth that you must be wide-minded. Okay, they allow everyone into a church or a mosque. Okay, but in Hinduism, that idea is there. That sometimes, and even
No, Rangada, it's not true. Even in Christian, even in church, I have been there in one of the New Years. That thing that they give you to eat with wine, some kind of a bread with wine.
Bread and wine.
Yeah.
So they don't give it to non-Christians.
Achha, okay, but they allow it.
Yeah, that is for communion.
Yeah.
You know, communion, you have this holy communion and you kneel down and they put one round, like a thin sugary thing is put on your tongue.
Yeah.
So,
That is baptism. You are made into a Christian. That they don't have.
No, not only in baptism. Even when you go for New Year or any Christmas Day, they do give it to everybody. But if you're not a Christian, they don't. They didn't give it to me once. They asked me, "Are you a practicing Christian?" I said no. And they just asked me to go ahead, not give it. So everybody has their own set of things,
Yeah. Human beings are limited. So naturally it expresses itself limited.
But in Iran and in Azerbaijan, where there are fire temples, anybody and everybody goes there. In Azerbaijan, in Baku, there is a natural fire temple because from down the gas comes up and it gets lit. And this is not only worshipped by Zoroastrians, but even by the Hindus and the Sikhs from Pakistan, etc., come to worship that fire, which is a natural fire. Now, in India, when we came from Iran and we met this Jadav Raja, and we promised him that we will not convert anybody to Zoroastrianism. And that is the reason why we don't allow anyone inside our temple, because according to that, we didn't want to convert anybody. But now things are totally distorted.
Yes.
Absolutely, as it's happened in a lot of religions. And now they say only Parsis can go in, nobody else can go in.
So that's a distortion of the idea. Correct, you are right. Okay, that famous example is known to everybody. 400 people from Iran came on the Gujarat coast and they told the king that we will mix with your people like that. And they took a cup of water and milk and then they mixed and said, we will be mixing like that. We will not be any obstruction and we will not be a foreign element in your country. So that was the famous story of the Parsi. By the way, I'm making a little, but it's a very interesting thing because it shows the character of India. The Iranians migrated not only to India, but they migrated to Africa, they migrated to Europe. But everywhere in Europe and Africa, their distinctive racial trait and religious trait is gone. It doesn't exist. It exists only in India. That means India has allowed them to maintain their separateness. And yet there is a complete harmony. So that's an interesting thing. And this community of the Parsis in India, it is, they don't consider themselves a minority at all. And the Christians are always insisting that they are a minority and they should be given full rights. And the Muslims also, we need to have special rights and all that. But the Parsis never do that. They stand for themselves and they become one of the richest communities in India by just self-dependence.
And Rangada, same is true for Jains also. Jains also never consider themselves minorities.
Yeah, that's right. So these are very interesting
No,
things.
but there was an incident when the Jains had wanted minority. Even the Ramakrishna Mission people had wanted minority status. So these are political things.
Yes.
But that is a different.
That's
These are
right.
political things. And
Yeah.
Rangada,
Ah,
in mosque, nobody is allowed, not even females.
really?
Yes, even females, their own females cannot enter a mosque.
Okay. In Islam,
No, no, in Malaysia, in
Malaysia-
Malaysia, we went to a
About
mosque.
Malaysia. I
Yeah,
don't know
but
about
in
Malaysia. I don't
Malaysia,
stay in
They
Malaysia.
make
I
you
know
wear
about
the
India.
hijab and let you in.
Okay. Yeah, variations
Yeah.
are there everywhere. Yeah.
You know, when we went to Jerusalem and
Hmm.
we went to
Rangada,
that,
because I in Mahoba,
Hmm. Yes. What
uh,
happened? Yeah, Yasmin.
I think the
when
voice
we went to
is problem.
Jerusalem, and on the other side of the Wailing Wall is
Huh?
that golden dome.
Huh.
So we had to go to the other side, which is the Muslim side.
Oh.
And I had worn pants, but a little part of my ankle was shown. So
Huh.
they made me wear some stupid, dirty wrap around so that my ankle gets covered. It's so absurd. And there was nothing great in that place.
Huh.
But since you went to Jerusalem, you wanted to see what was there on the other side of the Wailing Wall.
Yeah.
And in Malaysia, they don't allow females to go like that. They give you that black hijab which you have to wear
Acha.
over your clothes, and then only they allow you to go in.
Even in Saudi Arabia also, when we visit the mosque, they make us wear this black hijab.
Acha. Archana was saying something. Let her finish what she's saying. Archana, you were saying something.
In India, in the mosques, females are not allowed.
Saudi
Actually,
Arabia
in Mahoba, where I stay, Rangada, it was almost 30% Muslim population.
Acha.
And I was quite in family relations also with some families. Some very good people also. There is some who accept. So that's why I know that their women are not allowed. They read there at home and everything.
Acha.
Even on Eid and all that, everything is done at home. Only the men go to the mosques.
Acha.
In India, that is very.
But if men are non-Muslims, will they allow them to go in?
No. That's what I'm saying. Even their own women are not allowed.
No, that of course I understand. But a non-Muslim man will not be allowed in the mosque.
No. Now I'll explain to you why women are not allowed. See,
Women,
their external symbolism, like to prove that they are Muslim, they have to have this thing, that ceremony of Katni. Okay. So because women do not have it, so women are not confirmed Muslims. That is the mentality behind it.
but in the Bodhi community,
Yes.
they do that circumcision even of the female child.
Yeah.
Something so cruel
Yes.
but only the Bori community does it, and people all over Africa also do it.
Yeah, there are all
Yeah.
various.
It is also done in some Christian communities among the nuns. I don't know exactly which and details I don't know, but it is done among some of the nuns also.
What about the Jews? Very clear. The Jews also, they do that.
That I don't know. But about Christian community, I know in some of the convents, nuns have to go through it. Like,
Okay. So, interesting discussion.
The best place in the world is Sri Aurobindo Ashram, where everybody is allowed to come.
No,
Fully
but
free. Fully free.
Rangada,
Ah,
this didn't answer your question whether men are allowed or not. We are talking about women only. You asked about men, no? Non-Muslim men.
yes, that is what I said. You didn't understand, Tarkia. What I'm meaning to say that women are not allowed, not because they are women only, because they cannot prove that they are Muslims. So how will men who are not Muslims be allowed? Did you understand?
Uh-huh. Okay.
yeah.
That's
Okay. So let's interesting discussion on all the different types of religions. Every religion has got their own rigidities. Okay. Rigidity also has got a truth because it preserves purity.
the logic. Clear.
There is a logic. to
And
it.
Rangada, every religion has an exoteric and an esoteric.
That's right. That's right.
Philosophy.
The fixity also has a truth, and a wideness and flexibility also has a truth. Exactly. So
That one thing struck me, Rangada, just 1 minute. That Yasmin was saying, like you said, that it is only in India the purity of Parsis remained as a community. Maybe the reason was that long back they promised that we will not be separated. They maintain their separate entity. So it is still, it continues. So that was one advantage of their giving that word. We can say that way, because in others they mixed and it was gone. But here, because the purity or whatever we say, purity or the distinctness was maintained, so we still have the Parsi community as it is in India.
yeah, that's right. But in the
Also,
ashram,
I think Hinduism is so vast and by design secular, that it does not feel threatened by other philosophies, and so it allows them to coexist and prosper.
it's interesting, Gitanjali, just now you mentioned about ashram being very, very open, but it's I don't know if some of you know, but very young children were not allowed when mother and father were there. You know why? Because the
Shakti
force,
path is too strong.
that's right, the force that they were emanating could harm a child, because a child is innocent and he is not yet fully, he is a raw material. He is not a formed material. So a raw material, if he is exposed to even that force, it can harm him. So that's why children were not allowed. And I had a very
And
interesting...
Even today, in less than 3 years, children are not allowed inside the samadhi.
Because the
They
room,
stop.
there is a power in that room. Okay. And I have seen that with my own eyes once. What happened was that I was standing in a line and there was a person, a parent, I don't remember, I think it was a mother, and she had a small child, about 4 or 5 years old. Okay, 5 years old. And they were going towards mother in the meditation hall. Mother used to give blessings in the meditation hall. Then when we were near the outside the hall, we were about 20 people ahead of us. And this child started fidgeting. Okay, he started fidgeting. And the mother was holding the child and not allowing him to, telling him to keep quiet and be calm. But as we went on going nearer and nearer to mother, from 20 people ahead of me, it became 10 people ahead of us. That child simply released himself forcibly from his mother's arms and ran away. He could not stand the pressure. Okay. So this was so clearly, it illustrated the truth that a child can be harmed. So children should not be taken there. That was the only thing.
Yeah, and very nice. And Rangada also, since Sri Aurobindo himself in this paragraph, he's saying that outer symbols are important, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
that is why maybe different religions gave importance to these outer symbols as well.
Yeah.
Because maybe they do have an occult impact.
Of course, and that's most of you I think know now, na? In that place in Kerala. What is that place of pilgrimage called?
Sabrimala. Sabrimala.
Sabrimala. That huge question has come up again in India because women are not allowed, and some justifications say that it is for the protection of women. Anyway, we'll leave all that alone, but there must be some reason. And even the Supreme Court said that it is always wiser not to ignore traditions. Okay, when there is a tradition, we may have lost the reason for the tradition, but it is wise not to disturb the status quo. There is a wisdom in not disturbing the status quo. Okay, that's Srivastava also mentioned that. In fact, I was very surprised once when he said that the sacrifice of goats in the Kali temple, okay, in Calcutta, Srivastava defended that. Okay, very strange. I thought, my God, what is Srivastava saying? Animal sacrifice is okay. Because the idea behind the sacrifice of animals is sacrifice the animal within yourself. That makes a lot of sense. It is symbolic. But why do it physically? But Srivastava justified it. So we have to, it's so subtle, these questions. So we shouldn't be very judgmental, and we should, and that's wisdom the Supreme Court had in Sabrimala case. They said that it is always wise not to judge too much the traditions. And as Yasmin pointed out, the tradition of not allowing others to go into the fire temple, it was a good thing, but it got distorted and it's being misinterpreted. So that is exactly why tradition should not be tampered with very easily and in a shallow and superficial manner. You must consider very carefully, and we may have lost the reason for it. So we can't explain, and now we use our logic and say all this is nonsense. It's not true. Traditions always have an element of truth, and as time goes on, it gets distorted. So it's a very interesting thing. So we should be very careful not to. And Srivastava says that very clearly in one place, that the status quo of any condition should not be disturbed unless the next stage is well established and thoroughly experienced. Otherwise, you'll be creating confusion. Only when you are sure of the next step, then you take the next step. Otherwise, let these status quo remain for some time.
And Rangada, it has also been in a lot of mythological stories like Demeter and Persephone, you know. Once Persephone partook of that food, you know, she was condemned to Hades.
Yeah.
So all these have some occult significance behind it, like what you partake of, you know, like the prasadam of, or this thing we discussed in the church, you know, when they make you eat that.
Yes.
So when you partake of something, then what consequence it may have in the subtler inner planes, we don't know maybe, and that's
Exactly.
fine.
That's why it is always better not to be too judgmental about all these things. So we had a very wide-ranging discussion on these elements, and yeah, it is very interesting to see. It is very, very subtle, and so sometimes these subtle things we look at it in a very gross manner, and we should be very careful about our judgment and understanding of these things. Okay, let's get back to our. We have got 10 minutes, so we'll try and see what we can do with this. In any cult, I'm reading the first sentence. In any cult, the symbol, the significant rite or expressive figure, is not only a moving and enriching aesthetic element, but a physical means by which the human being begins to make outwardly definite the emotion and aspiration of his heart, to confirm it and to dynamize it. So Srivastava is mentioning here enriching aesthetic element. moving and enriching aesthetic element. I'd like to comment on that a little bit. I had two experiences, I remember. Once, a very close friend of mine was getting married in Pondicherry only. And they invited me to the ceremony in the church. So I went there, okay. It was a different one and I went there. But I can tell you, the Christian, the sermon and all that, the way it is done, there is a very aesthetic element in that. They do it beautifully. Very nice. I was quite surprised and I still remember, my God, how beautiful it is. The singing and the way it is done. So it is definitely there. Now, in India, sometimes the temples are places where there is a lot of dirt, unfortunately. Maybe now it is better, but at the long ago, it is very dirty. In Vilupuram, there is a temple, na? So I had gone there once and you see a lot of dirt everywhere. Okay, that was the, of course, you see dirt everywhere in India. Now it is getting slightly better and better. But the even in India, okay, in one interesting case in Tanjavur, there is that famous Brihadaranyaka, it's called, what is it? Brihadeshwara temple, okay, with an 80-ton stone right on top of the. So how they did that, nobody knows. But it's a beautiful temple, and we had gone there. And when we were in the inner chamber, okay. Garbha Griha, they call it, okay, the inner chamber. There was a man, a Tamilian, who went and he started singing. And it was so beautiful, his singing, okay, that it was really impressive. So, there can be the aesthetic element, very much. That's what Siddhartha is mentioning. So the outer symbol should not be easily dismissed as useless. That's what Siddhartha is saying. Moving and enriching aesthetic element. But a physical means by which the human being begins to make outwardly definite the emotion and aspiration of his heart, to confirm it and to dynamite it. I now go to the next sentence. For if without a spiritual aspiration, worship is meaningless and vain, yet the aspiration also without the act and the form is an disembodied and for life an incompletely effective power. So this is what he is saying, that both are necessary. If you concentrate only on the inner, it is true that it is more powerful, but you will not be able to put it into practice. Okay, if you are sitting in your room and thinking of mother and your devotion is real and true, fine, there's no problem with that. But if you are walking in the street or going to your in the bazaar, it will not have an effect, because you should be capable of doing that also. So that is exactly what Sridhar is saying. Both are necessary. Without the act and the form, okay, yet the aspiration also without the act and the form is disembodied. It has to become something absolutely living in every act that you are doing, in eating, in sleeping, in going, in running, in playing football, even in war. Okay, so that it has to be absolutely a fact. That's exactly what we say. So interesting what he said. I go to the next sentence. It is unhappily the fate of all forms in human life to become crystallized. Now he is talking of the disadvantage of the outer only, without the aspiration, without the inner emotion. It is unhappily the fate of all forms in human life to become crystallized, purely formal, and therefore effete. Effete, useless, not effective. That's what it means. The word effete means powerless, ineffective, effeminate. These are the words used for effete. Okay. And although form and cult preserve always their power for the man who can still enter into their meaning, the majority come to use the ceremony as a mechanical rite, and a symbol as a lifeless sign. The ceremony is a mechanical rite. Okay, when you are doing arati, for instance, if you are doing it mechanically, there is of no use. I'll give you a very specific instance. If you see people in the samadhi, they'll take a dhoop, okay, and then go on waving it around in mother's room, not in mother's room, but towards mother's room. If you do it with the right emotion, that's fine. But if you are looking as to who is wearing what clothes and who is coming and who is going, and mechanically you are going on with that, absolutely useless. So that's what Sundar is pointing out. It becomes only the ceremony becomes a mechanical rite. And also the symbol, the photograph or the image becomes a lifeless sign. That is those who believe that the form has no importance. So Sundar is saying all the three are important. It's very interesting what he's saying. No? So all the three are important. So the majority come to use the ceremony as a mechanical rite and symbol as a lifeless sign because it kills the soul of religion, cult, and form, have in the end to be changed and thrown aside altogether. So in the spiritual life, they feel that all the forms you have to get rid of and go only for the psychological aspect of the adoration and worship. Okay, so that's what he's saying. There are those even to whom all cult and form are for this reason suspect and offensive. You have this idea in Islam, you have the idea even in our Arya Samaj, okay, that the outer form has no importance at all. Okay, God is not with form. So there are those even to whom all cult and form are for this reason suspect and offensive. But few can dispense with the support of outward symbols, and even a certain divine element in human nature demands them always for the completeness of its spiritual satisfaction. You can see here Sri Aurobindo wide view of things. Okay. He's saying that everything, all these things have a truth. However false they may be in some cases, there is an element of truth. Human nature demands that there should be a symbol. Okay, that's what he's saying. Always the symbol is legitimate insofar as it is true, sincere, beautiful and delightful. And even one may say that a spiritual consciousness without any aesthetic or emotional content is not entirely, or at any rate, not integrally spiritual. So all the three are necessary. And remember always also that Mother and Sri Aurobindo used to give their own photographs to people who wanted and put their signature on it. Okay. When my father had come in 1945, he got a book from Sri Aurobindo and he had written my father's name to so and so, and he signed it. Okay. So you are actually, photographs also Mother used to sign and give. So it can be misinterpreted. In fact, one fellow from the ashram itself, he misinterpreted. And he said that, oh, they are giving their own photographs. It's an egoistic sign. That is nonsense. Because that photograph is true, sincere, beautiful and delightful. It has a power. And when you are giving it that with that power, naturally it is something most spiritually true. So this is what Sundar is saying. And even one may say that a spiritual consciousness without any aesthetic or emotional content is not entirely or at any rate integrally spiritual. In the spiritual life, the basis of the act is a spiritual consciousness, perennial and renovating, moved to express itself always in new forms, or able to renew the truth of a form always by the flow of the spirit. And to so express itself and make every action a living symbol of some truth of the soul is the very nature of its creative vision and impulse. It is so that the spiritual seeker must deal with life and transmute its form and glorify it in its essence. So remember that there is a photograph of Mother and Sri Aurobindo in the meditation hall. There is a beautiful image of sculpted image of Mother in the library. Okay, so everywhere it is there. Even the symbols themselves, Mother's symbol and Sri Aurobindo symbol, they are symbols. So can we say that they have no value? Of course they have a value. So that's it. So we stop here today, and next time we'll go to a supreme divine love. Is it?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
You said that Sri Aurobindo gave a book to your father in 1945.
Yes.
But had he not withdrawn from everybody at that time?
Yeah, but the book used to be sent to him and he used to sign.
Oh,
It's not that my father went to him, it's not that. But when you ask for a book to be signed, he would sign and give. No direct contact. That's right. Okay?
Merci beaucoup.
Okay.
Merci beaucoup. Au revoir. Bonne journée,
Bye.
Ramadan.
We had a very meaningful discussion today. Au revoir,
Thank you.
everybody.
Au revoir, Rangada.
Au revoir. Have a
Thank you,
nice
Rangada.
Au revoir.